Ken Haas, and welcome to this week's edition of Kenny's Two Pennies. This week, we're going to take a look at what's happened the last week in Syracuse sports, football and basketball. But first, a word from our sponsor. Hello, Syracuse fans. Want to know where I watch the Syracuse games? Right here at Dewey's Third Ward Tavern, Bridge Street in Seneca Falls. Want to watch the NFL? Dewey's has the NFL ticket. And also on Thursday nights, Dewey's has the NFL Network. So you don't have to worry about missing if you got cable. Dewey's broadcasts all Syracuse games, basketball and football. Dewey's has 21 televisions to watch all your sports action. Come to Dewey's Third Ward Tavern here on Bridge Street in Seneca Falls. I'll see you here. Well, another semi-busy week for Syracuse sports, and I got a couple things on my mind. First, we're going to take a look at the new hire for offensive coordinator for the Syracuse football team. Mr. Marone went out and got himself an old buddy to be the offensive coordinator. And from what they've said, as she was going to get with the program, it seems as though in football today, seems every college runs the no-huddle spread style attack. But let's hope that kind of offensive attack doesn't backfire at this coordinator's expense. And secondly, let's take a look at the Eric Devendorf situation, shall we? It seems as though his appeal was heard, and it's been reduced to 40 hours of community service. And also, it kind of may vary on the time he misses. They say if he meets these parameters, he could be back by the Seton Hall game. Some could say he could be back by the first Georgetown game. Well, whatever. I hope this is a lesson to you, Mr. Devendorf. Don't hit women like that, even if she was a But let's take a good look. Oh, what have I got? Somebody here?
Kenny, I need a Sprite.
He messed it up.
Sprite.
You gonna incorporate that? Uh-oh. Regain composure, regain composure. And now let's take a look at our 3 games. Opening a can, shall we? Boy, I wish I had a beer or some wine. Yeah, here's to you, all you peckerheads. First, let's take a quick look at the game after the disastrous one from Cleveland State. Canisius. Mr. Devendorf's last game before his suspension. But you know what? We laid down the law against those Golden Griffins from Buffalo. 82-60. Nice performance all around, Mr. Devendorf, Mr. Harris, and also the rest of the team. Damn, I'm still not get composed yet. And Mr. Flynn. But let's take a look at the big game, shall we? Mr. Calipari and Memphis. Everybody was thinking with Mr. Devendorf starting his suspension that this was going to be a disaster. But you know what? A funny thing happens when we leave the Carrier Dome and go on our first road game of the season down there to Memphis. Instead of walking into a hornet's nest, the only buzz that was generated was how Syracuse handled the Tigers. Mr. Jackson was put in Mr. Devendorf's place, and boy did he do an admirable job. And boy did Syracuse do an admirable job down there at the FedEx Forum. Falling behind by almost 10 points early in the game, but then coming back, regaining the lead, and then even outplaying Mr. Calipari in Memphis down there. What a nice win, Orange fans. Kind of makes you wonder, why couldn't we do that against Cleveland State? 72-65 against a nationally ranked team. But something bothers me about that. Hell, we can beat Florida, we can beat Kansas, and we can beat Memphis, nationally ranked teams. But yet we can't lose to a team like Cleveland State. Of course, sometimes you get what you play for, especially when you try to play down to somebody's level. Of course, Cleveland State was one scrappy team that night. But a win is a win, and a win over a national power too. And finally, maybe we'll break this Calipari jinx. As you know it seemed as though whenever Syracuse played Mr. Calipari's teams, they'd always lose, especially when he was at UMass. And you know what? No reason for Mr. Boeheim to turn into Mr. Cheney. Because you know what? He probably didn't get his ass blasted, and he probably didn't want to kill Mr. Calipari. Heck, he probably just wanted to hug him and say, "Take that, you." But let's take a look at the third game against Coppin State last night, a historically African-American university from Baltimore in the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. Boy, it almost looked like Cleveland State there for a while. Those 1-7 Coppin State Eagles were pretty game there for a while. And I'm thinking, oh boy, here we go again 1 week later. But you know what? Andy Rauten's got in the zone. Hell, he looked like an old Syracuse player of yore, G-Mac, Jerry McNamara, who should be playing in the NBA instead of the NBDL. Heck, he tied Mr. McNamara's record for three-pointers, sinking 9 of them. And they gave him 2 chances to break the record, but he threw up bricks. But whatever. You were in the zone, Mr. Routens. 9 three-pointers, 29 points overall. What a performance. Heck, even I was standing in my living room chair there. Well, not in there, standing up on the floor. If I was standing in my living room chair, I would have hit the ceiling fan. And you know what happens if your hair is destroyed by a ceiling fan? You might be a redneck. Of course, I'm no redneck. I'm a northerner. Of course, could you call this a redneck? But nice mini escape last night, Orange. But the thing is, we should have won by maybe 20 or 30 points. As you know what, that might have been the last time Mr. Pursuti and Mr. Reese could have gotten in a game. Heck, I wanted to see him there in the last minute. But you know how the flow of games could be. But a win is a win. But now, it's for real. This has all been a tune-up. Starting next week, it's for real. Conference play begins. And this is where we separate the men from the boys. So far, the Orange have been men. But let's hope, in conference play, they don't turn into boys. Merry Christmas to all, and to everybody who's watched my show the last few months. Thank you very much. I'm Ken Haas. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.